Chan of Philippine Startup Week to host a conversation on how fintech is empowering Filipinos. We'd like to invite Crypto PhOG Yang Zhang of Sendit and Bing Zhuo of Huawei.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope everyone's having a great Web3 festival so far. So today we're going to be talking about empowering Filipinos through fintech. And I'm actually quite surprised, pleasantly surprised to see that we have an all-female blockbuster panel here that's going to be talking about, fintech and ecosystem building, community building, and impact again in the fintech ecosystem, especially with Web3 and crypto, right? So, yeah, I guess today all of you guys are going to get to find out from our panel today how fintechs and the tech ecosystem, right, is adapting to the fast-paced world of crypto and how they're kind of addressing the needs of Filipino Web3 natives, as I'm assuming many of the people in this audience are, right? And I'm joined here today by Yang and Maria, but before I ask them to introduce themselves, I'm Kat Chan. I'm not cool enough to be a Web3 person, so maybe most of you don't know me, but if you do, it's probably because I work with Ideaspace, which is one of the largest tech accelerators here in the Philippines, as well as Kubo. So we work with the government and also organize the Philippine Startup Week, which is also happening this week. And I guess I've worked with about, 700 or so startups now in the ecosystem, working in the Web 2 space initially, since we've been at this for around 10 years, but now really excited to see a lot of new faces in the Web 3 ecosystem. And I think many of you will know that fintech is probably the largest sort of space or vertical in our startup ecosystem. All of our unicorns are in the fintech space, I would say. Many of the Web3 companies are the largest growing also, whether it's in metaverse, fintech, and many others. And today, again, I'm joined by these lovely ladies, and we're gonna be having about half an hour to discuss the impact and where we're seeing it going, right? So, okay, so let me actually kick this off and ask each of you, ladies, to, maybe just do a quick kind of self-introduction, right? So who you are, what you guys are up to, or what you ladies are up to, rather, and I guess describe sort of what you're doing with respect to this topic, right? So, how your companies and your work is sort of involved in bridging this sort of fintech kind of crypto space. So, yeah, maybe I'll start the end of the panel. So, Yang.
Sure. Hi, I'm Yang. I came to the Philippines in 2017 to be one of the co-founders of PDAX, which is still, I think, one of the largest order book exchanges here. It was impossible when you were involved in Web3 all the way back in 2017, 2018 to not fall in love with the enthusiasm in the space at the time. So I chose to stay after I left PDAX in 2019. I now head new products, of course, a little bit bordering on Web3, a little bit bordering on open banking. I head new products at Sendit, which is a regional payments and banking infrastructure company. And I also lead regional expansion, which is why I'm still here in the Philippines, my now adopted home.
Awesome. And yeah, Bing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bing. I work for Huawei International. I'm sure you guys have heard of this company. So I'm based in Singapore for the part of the region ecosystem and partner team. Mainly, recently we focus on fintech industry, especially for the hottest topic, the crypto, metaverse, and everything. But we love to work with local companies to explore this area. So that's the background of we've been here. Welcome, thank you for seeing us here.
Yeah, thank you, Yang and Bing. I guess, my first question really is, why is it important, right? Why is it important for, I guess both of you sort of represent traditional, or not necessarily traditional, but more established kind of fintechs, right? So why is it important for the traditional systems of fintech to sort of embrace the new, right? The Web3, the crypto. And yeah, you guys, ladies, care to discuss a bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's quite important because it's very new stuff for all of us. Especially even myself, we work in the traditional fintech industry. But recently, even our company, we invest a lot of resources into this industry. We have a dedicated local team for crypto, related business, and especially in APAC region, we have around 200 people for fintech industry, mainly just for business development. So I think that's one of the signs to show that we think this is very important, and we like to invest, and we like to connect with local people, companies, startups, developers. Whoever in this industry, we like to know you, and we want to learn as well, because this is a new, era for us as well.
So for Huawei, definitely an area of priority. So I suppose, Bing is looking to connect with you if you're a fintech company. But I guess for you, Yang, this is perhaps nothing as new. You were with PDAX before this, right? Before Zendit. So what are your thoughts on, why it's important for traditional fintech to kind of embrace the Web3 side of things?
So a couple months ago, I remember I went to my parents' house in the States, and I went through some old cabinets, and I pulled out all of my old flared and bell-bottom jeans because they're fashionable again. And I feel like that's kind of an analogy for everything, right? The more things change, the more they stay the same. Ultimately, if we think about fintech, payments, digital payments was super new and disruptive and, frowned upon by banks just a decade, 5 years ago. I think now that the pandemic has happened and there's been a ton of adoption of digital payments, we forget how recently that happened. And so I think that for even, let's say, traditional fintechs, which is a word that would be unthinkable a decade ago, for any fintech, I think our responsibility is to show the same open-mindedness our partners showed us when we first started to enter. And so the same way that banks tried to shut down payments companies 5, 10 years ago, we are now responsible for not closing our doors to Web3 companies. So I think a big part of what Zendit does, in Indonesia, we were one of the first to support the P2P lending industry. Here in the Philippines, we were the first to champion something like direct debit, which is the ability to pull directly from bank accounts, something that didn't exist before. And to us, crypto, or at least the responsible Web3 players, are the same ones that are going to be the unicorns of the future. And so it's really up to us to figure out how to work with them compliantly, to be able to approach the regulators together. I think that a big part of having had experience on the other side of the curtain, so to speak, is that at least when I'm approaching regulators on the more traditional side of things, I'm able to say, hey, we're not all the lawless wild, wild west, right? I think that a lot of us actually want to see regulation enter this space. A lot of us know that without those frameworks, it's actually impossible to see Web3 scale responsibly in the future. And I think that for us, it's important, no matter what industry we're in, to think about how Web3 will touch our lives, and also about how we can continue to support responsible innovation in that new ecosystem.
No, that's really interesting to think of it that way. I guess we're the old guard now in some ways, right? And welcoming the new guys. But I think generally, maybe the elephant in the room, right, when everybody thinks about crypto, especially these days, is the crypto winter and the FTX stuff, I guess, more recently, right? But I think what you said, Yang, really is important to touch on, in that it is important to kind of step back and think about, in the startup world, we like to talk about falling in love with the problem, right? Why are we doing this, and what is the problem exactly that we're trying to solve? And whether whatever phase of web you're in, right? I think a lot of these sort of fundamental things remain the same, right? And as we think about empowering Filipinos, and not just Filipinos, but consumers and people through fintech, right? I suppose, I am curious to hear about what's the problem that you've fallen in love with, and how you see Web3 and crypto as sort of being part of that solution, like outside of maybe the short-term friction that we're encountering, right? Like, how do you see crypto impacting or improving the financial system, or what problems does it really solve? Why is it important, right? Yeah, any thoughts to share on that?
I can sort of share some of the experience that I'm encountering with those companies. I'm sort of in charge of our ecosystem partners for APAC region, and we have worked with those companies for 7 countries in APAC. And I found out, especially not only Filipinos, but also Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia, there are lots of companies, they're looking to invest in some more new areas. And I can see that in this industry, even in very little, short time, the company profit can be increased, rapidly. I know that because when we, freshly recruit some partners, and within a few months, 3 or 6 months, and the profit and the cloud, the services they're using can, improve like 50% plus.
50%.
Yeah, so I can sort of see this is, very good business, so to speak. So, and especially where are they? Singapore, Hong Kong, and Filipino, and also Malaysia, Indonesia. And also, another science I can share with you guys is that when we work with those companies, they are easy to deal with. They just, startups and, code writers, very easy to deal with. And they only, talk about technical stuffs and not commercial. So that's another reason that I'm showing that I love to work with those people. Yeah, I think that's something I like to share.
And this is something you've been seeing everywhere, it seems like. Amazing.
Yes.
And yeah, how about you, Yang Yang? What's your why, right? Like, what's the problem that you think you're solving, and what role do you see Web3 playing in that at the end of the day?
I think that a lot of people ask me this question, mostly in the context of, you're not Filipina. Why are you still here, 5, 6 years later? What brought you to the Philippines in the first place? And actually, that was one of my favorite expressions. Like, as a founder, you have to fall in love with a problem. You can never be egotistical enough to think, my first idea is the right solution to that problem. You have to continuously force yourself to reinvent so that you can come up with more and more innovative solutions to that same problem. And I think that fundamentally, the same problem that brought me here is the same problem I've now stayed through 2 companies to solve. And it's really about accessibility. I think that a lot of times there are many ways that we can attack the same issue, right? But fundamentally, it's very difficult for Filipinos to access the same types of financial products, the same types of responsible credit, the same types of even mechanisms for saving that a lot of other people can in other parts of the world. And I think that that issue boils down to 3 kind of symptoms that we can tackle together. The first is distribution. The second is trust. And the third is infrastructure to empower both of the other 2. And so if you think about it, there are both, now I can say, I guess, traditional, sort of in the banking, payments, traditional space, but also Web3 ways of tackling all 3 of those dimensions. Obviously, on the side of trust, you can start to digitize KYC through traditional means, figure out ways through traditional databases that we can verify identities better, but we can also do that in one fell swoop with a great blockchain solution. The second is distribution. When you think about distribution, there is a way in the traditional space to work with partners and try to open their eyes to what innovation can do, not only for cutting edge businesses, but even for their own legacy businesses, the analog world, so to speak. And that's something we can do traditionally, but also in the Web3 space, globally all at once, because anything that rolls out in the Web3 ecosystem rolls out to everyone all at the same time. And then finally, this idea of being able to build infrastructure that empowers the other 2. I think there's something that, in the traditional space needs to happen, right? On the fiat rails, we do spend most of our time trying to work with partners really on the very base layer of their own infrastructure, co-building solutions so they can start to offer a better platform for Web 2 and Web 3 companies to interact with them. But on the blockchain side, we can do that again so much faster because the technology is inherently more democratic by the fact that anyone who can learn Solidity can write a smart contract. And so I think that for me, in order to really build a strong foundation for Web3 innovation, to allow all of this really rapid innovation to happen, both sides have to move in parallel. And so I think to me, I've had the good fortune of seeing both sides of that problem, but it's really all the same. I think that fundamentally, what I came here to do is really just to make sure that there's more accessibility. I think today, I'm looking at the Web 2 space and how to empower Web 3. And I hope that there are players here that are continue to take advantage of that.
I really love that sentiment, this idea of accessibility, right? Again, of problem solving. I know many people in this community are working at, different solutions that are addressing that. And again, using perhaps different tools, right? And I think one very powerful aspect of Web3 also is this sense of community, right? And like how things are being built, the speed at which it's being built also. And again, the fusion perhaps of different tools, use cases, traditional and kind of new companies kind of working together, right? And kind of developing these solutions to these very hairy problems still, like I have to say. And yeah, I guess on that note, I guess my next question is, are there ways maybe that you see that crypto and Web3 are actually helping the people of the Philippines right now? Like, whether it's obvious to them or it's something that's more hidden, perhaps. I don't know, like, I would love to hear from both of you on, like, how is this whole Web3 crypto stuff actually affecting people already, like today?
I think as for the research we've done, there are around 150 fintech companies in Filipinos, and nearly half of them are our customers. And if we talk about the traditional fintech company and the new ones, we found out a lot of, especially the people in this industry, they look into the solution. And the new technology and Web3 company and all that provided a pathway for them to think through. Just for example, like, ChanUp is one of our companies, one of our customers. They're in Singapore. And the business they do, not only just for that region, but they looking to expand the business, in Philippines as well. And I think this is new industry and provided those investors for new thing to think about, and maybe wanted to expand the business. Yeah.
How about you, Yang Yang? Is there a surprising one maybe that people don't know about in terms of how Web3 is affecting Philippine fintech right now?
So I will not take the low-hanging fruit, which is crypto-based remittance, although I think that's a big one. I know that a lot of the crypto players here, I think PDAX, Coins.ph actually participate in these massive global crypto-based remittance networks, and I think that that's doing a lot of good. I think the one that I wanted to focus on was really the visibility of the startup scene here. I think that on the back of, I think, just that play to earn, now it's a little bit of a dirty word, but still on the back of that kind of movement over the last year, there's been a lot of visibility for the Philippine startup scene. I think that with this sort of change in management happening across a lot of the sort of big crypto players here as well, there's a lot of just global visibility to a particular tech industry in the Philippines that we really haven't seen before. I think that it's nice to see global investors, global VCs start to take the Philippines more seriously.
Absolutely.
I think we get pinged every day by one of our investors, for example, asking, hey, do you know this Philippine startup? They're in the Web3 space. Like, do you work with them? And I think that it's really, really nice to see that happen. I think a lot of people don't credit the crypto industry with that because a lot of times they focus on, again, this FTX debacle or, the play to earn stuff. And I think that there are a lot of really valid, impactful use cases that are being built, right here.
I mean, definitely on both points, I totally agree. Like, first of all, like remittances, right? Like, not super sexy, and I think that's kind of a theme in a lot of these things. Like a lot of change is being built on these things that maybe don't make the headlines, but at the same time make such a difference in so many people's lives, right? And I totally agree with you in terms of the lack of visibility, but the increasing interest. I mean, so many people flew in here for this Web3 festival. So, hey guys, especially if you're a first-time visitor to the Philippines, like, shout out to you. Thank you for coming. And yeah, in Philippine Startup Week, check that out as well. But no, but I super agree. Like, in terms of just the volume of kind of like, I don't know, telegrams I'm getting, right? Just asking about what's going on with XYZ company and like the interest from investors. There's definitely a lot of momentum being built there. And I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that, hey, there's traction, right? That's being established in these kind of lesser known, unsexier spaces, right? But that again, if it's a problem in a market like the Philippines, it's probably also an issue or a problem that can be solved in so many other places, right? And I think that's pretty exciting. So, so I guess on that note, and I was flagged that I have time for maybe one or two last questions. So maybe I'll kind of want to ask for both of your sort of final thoughts in terms of our topic again, which is empowering Filipinos through fintech. And I guess two things, right? Especially in this environment that we're in now, right? Like, so if you guys had a crystal ball, I suppose, right? How do you see, or what do you think the importance of crypto in fintech will be, I suppose, in the next 5 years or so, like in the medium term, 3 to 5 years, right? Maybe hard to look much farther out than that. So that's kind of part one of the question. And then part two of the question is, what role do you see yourself playing in it? And maybe most importantly, right, like for the masses, for the average Filipino, for the people maybe watching online that aren't joining us here in this room, right? Like, what's sort of your, I don't want to say advice, but like, how do you see them kind of benefiting from or taking advantage of what's going on in fintech, in Web3, and all these developments, right? So again, it's kind of complex question, but yeah, 3 parts. Where do you kind of see it going? What role do you think you'll be playing in it? And then your advice to the layman masses, right, about how they should be participating in Web3 fintech space.
I think I'm not too sure where it's heading to. And as I don't know whether anyone can know that is heading to anywhere or, it's unclear just for me. But I think for myself, the role I'm playing, I can totally share with you, is that I will recruit more partners to build up a strong ecosystem and for this industry. And that's something that we're already doing right now. We have partner team in each country in APAC region. And we are talking to developers, startup companies, to recruit them as our partners. We have 2,000 partners in APAC region. So basically that's something we're doing. And we also have startup foundations that help startup companies. Just not so long ago in Singapore, we sort of invested like a 20K for each startup companies as a cloud voucher for them to use our cloud services. That's something we are doing. I think that, ecosystem is the key, and that is something we're willing to invest in and continually developing. Yeah.
So I think I'll reiterate that quick plug. So you're working with over 2,000 companies now, and you have quite a number of cloud. Is that a 2,000?
2,000 partners.
2,000
in
partners
APAC region.
in the
Yeah.
APAC region. So
right.
watch out for that, and a number of resources, cloud benefits, and things like this that the developers, especially, and the startup founders or wantrepreneurs, like should be able to take advantage of, right? So maybe not so much for the masses just yet, but yeah, like definitely lots of opportunities to engage with the ecosystem you have at Huawei, right? Good. All right, off to you with my very complicated question, Yang Yang. But
I always like consulting my crystal ball. I think if I were to look in the medium term, crypto has kind of been waiting for this formal regulation for quite some time. Maybe the silver lining, if we can see it that way, to disasters like this FTX, recent scandal and a lot of the other ones that have come through, is that it puts a sense of urgency behind regulation. And I think that hopefully the industry, and I see that, especially in the Philippines industry, is strong enough to kind of work together to make sure that regulators don't punitively or over-regulate, while at the same time actually finally introducing formal frameworks that actually empower the industry more. And so I think if I had a crystal ball, that's maybe wishful thinking, but I think that's what I see for the next 3 to 5 years. There'll be a big focus.
There would be more guardrails, but at the end of the day, that would actually allow the industry to grow even more, right? Or
yes, and it maybe even would focus the industry within those guardrails to move even faster, because there won't be all these distractions of bad actors. It'll be the good ones that actually will have the regulators behind them cheering them on.
I will say, like, that is part of the, in a way, like it's surprising for some to hear that, we're calling for regulation, but I think it's part of the values of why, open finance became a thing in the first place, right? Like, to want something of this sort in a way. So anyway, sorry, like I interrupted you. But yeah, so that's your crystal ball prediction. Thank you for that.
Within my crystal universe, where do I think my role will be? I like to think I'm a little bit like Web 2.5. So, a champion of Web 3 that kind of sits as that double agent in a Web 2 world. So I hope that what Zendit can do is really be a great partner and friend to a lot of Web 3 startups that are still a little bit lost in this rapidly evolving regulatory framework. And I think that for us, we really hope that we can be that open-minded partner that will say, hey, you don't have, X qualification today, but let us try to introduce you to a partner that can get you there, or let us be that partner that can get you there, so that we can make sure that this sort of Web 2 and Web 3 world are bridged seamlessly in the future. Oh, and
the masses, your sort of advice
I can't forget
to the layman.
I think in line with the first two, advice to the masses, crypto is not just retail investing. It's not just making a fortune overnight or losing 10 fortunes overnight. I think that for anyone who's kind of listening in or starting to think about crypto or Web3, I would say focus on the use cases and do your research. I think that there are a ton of resources out there to make sure that you don't lose your shirt, your home, everything in the process. There's a way to get involved in really responsible companies that are pushing out really exciting things without taking risks that are beyond you.
Very sage advice. So thank you again, Yang Yang. Thank you, Bing.
Thank you,
I hope you
Christina.
can give our ladies a round of applause. Do check out Zendit and Huawei, and of course, Philippine Startup Week. I hope everyone in the audience, as well as those watching online, learned a little bit more and kind of had to think about how Fintech and Web3 can create impact in the Philippine ecosystem. Again, I've been Kat Chan. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of the Web3 Festival. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katrina Chan, Yang Yang Zhang, and Bing Zhuo for that discussion.